I love pop music. I'm just being real about it. I like it when it's done well. I came up during the Lady Gaga era. She was my favorite. And I appreciate the reemergence of artists like Chappell Roan. It's mainstream pop that also is challenging, that speaks about issues with the LGBTQ community. And she's kind of just like exploding all over the place, becoming really popular. I will say that she probably needs a publicist because she's doing way too many live streams having to explain herself and her political opinions. And also, she needs a publicist to push back against these liberals who are saying that she isn't endorsing Kamala Harris because she supports Trump or something like that. Well, I'm going to read the exact quote and then we'll
take time in the spotlight to understand you don't need to acknowledge everything everyone says about you.
She needs a publicist.
Right.
Yeah.
There are people worthy of response, which is the minority of people. And then there are people who are worthy of your complete, just pretend you don't even hear them or see them. They're not worthy of your time, which is unfortunately the majority of the people.
So she did an interview with Rolling Stone last week, and these were the quotes that set off this firestorm about her, where she explained why she didn't go to Pride at the White House for Joe Biden. She said, "I'm not going to go to the White House because I'm not going to be a monkey for Pride." She revealed that she declined the invite during her set at Governor's Ball in June, dressed as the Statue of Liberty. She dedicated My Kink is Karma to Joe Biden's administration.
Just to note for the liberals, that's the same June where the ongoing genocide Joe Biden was lying on behalf of in Gaza was going on. So yeah, I wouldn't want to be there anyway. Sorry to jump in, but I've been to 2 weddings since this fucking shelling has gone on since October 7th, and I've not been able to think about I've not been able to separate that. I had a fun time dancing. It's like, what do you start talking about immediately once you stop? It's Gaza.
So she declined to go to the White House, and she said this publicly. "We want liberty, justice, and freedom for all. When you do that, that's when I'll come." She said, referring to the famous lines on the Statue of Liberty's pedestal, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." She spoke out in support of trans rights, women's rights, and freedom for all oppressed people in occupied territories. Roan told Rolling Stone that when she first got the invite, she considered going, but not to perform. Instead, she wanted to read poetry in protest of the U.S. government's support of Israel's war in Gaza.
Amazing.
"I had picked out some poems from Palestinian women," Roan said. "I was trying to do this as tastefully as I could because all I wanted to do was yell. I had to find something that's tasteful and to the point and meaningful and not make it about me and how I feel." So that's pretty clear to me. But her statements about this have been misrepresented because she's not endorsing Kamala Harris. But she explains in this video here that an endorsement doesn't mean she's not voting for her. She says she's voting for Harris. She just doesn't want to endorse her for the reasons that honestly are reflective of a lot of young people in this country who, I was more enthusiastic about Harris than Biden, of course, because of Biden's ideological Zionism and commitment to this genocide. But if I were an artist, would I want to endorse her, given the fact that she hasn't made any policy commitments on this front as it relates to an arms embargo or anything like that? This is reflective of how so many young people feel. But here she is explaining.
This is basically our position.
Reasoning. This is our position. But she got slammed
even on
for
Biden
it.
in 2020. Voting. We don't change our attitude towards I don't generally change my attitude about voting. It's like the better coalitions, just get them across. But as far as endorsing and using your voice and saying this is me, this represents me. No, that's another fucking bar. And liberals who want people to just say, hey, dance at the Pride event and forget about Gaza. No, you're fucked, actually. That's not going to play.
I have encouraged people to use critical thinking skills, learn about what they're voting for, learn about who they're voting for, and ask questions. And it's being completely taken out of context, per usual. There is nuance to what I say in interviews. And I think it's important that people use critical thinking. I think it's important for me to question authority and question world leaders and question myself, question my algorithm, question if some person that tweeted something about someone else is even true. It's important to question because that's how I think we move forward. This is my third election in voting, and the world is changing so rapidly, and I want to be part of the generation that changes things for good because we need it. If you come to my shows, if you read my full interviews, if you literally know anything about me and for what I stand for, you know that this is not lip service, this is not virtue signaling, that my actions have always paved the way for my project and the people who really know me. Actions speak louder than words, and actions speak louder than an endorsement. Here's the full quote that a lot of people are just not reading. I have so many issues with our government in every way, she says. There are so many things that I would want to change, so I don't feel pressured to endorse someone. There's problems on both sides, and I encourage people to use your critical thinking skills. Use your vote. Vote small. Vote for what's going on in your city. The change she wants to see in the U.S. is this election year, she says, instantly is trans rights. They cannot have cis people making decisions for trans people, period. So, hear from my mouth, if you're still wondering, no, I'm not voting for Trump, and yes, I will always question those in power and those making decisions over other people.
So there you go.
And I will stand up for what's right and what I believe in. And
yeah,
it's always at the forefront of my project. And I'm sorry that you fell for the clickbait.
There we go. I just wanted to give that full explanation. So first of all, it's just there's so much talk, right? And I've been maybe not articulating myself well on this front about when I see headlines about Taylor Swift's endorsement of Kamala Harris, for example, right? And her publicist is clearly putting it out there oh, here's the link to the voting registrations that Taylor's particular link created. Hundreds of thousands of people signed up to vote because of Taylor Swift. You only know that information because her publicist is putting that out there for the media, and because they want it out there because she wants to align herself with a particular brand because it's good for her, the amount of money that she wants to make, whatever. That it's this incredibly kind of liberal incentive structure that she plays into and that people then reward. And with Chappell Roan saying, I'm not endorsing Kamala Harris, I'm going to vote for her, but I'm not going to lend my popularity to something where I don't have full agreement with her on, it caused a crazy backlash. One, because I don't think she has the same publicist team who puts certain stories out there to make her look favorable. But two, because right now there are a lot of people that just want Gaza to be forgotten. And she didn't articulate herself perfectly well, right? She said there are problems on the left and the right. I think she means the
problem on both sides.
Party,
there are. The Democrats fucking suck. Yeah,
right.
About
but
that too.
it would have been more accurate to say the Democrats, I think, than the left based on her politics. Sure. But regardless, this is the sentiment of a lot of people. One, I think Chappell also represents she came from a conservative evangelical background, not somebody who had money growing up, more poor to lower middle class, different just perspective than this pop industrial complex that is supposed to just be about voting for Democrats or whatever. It's more critical thinking involved here. And so the backlash has been bizarre to me, but one, girl, hire a publicist so we don't have to worry about this. But two, good on you.
You're right.
Because she's right. And it's indistinguishable from our position.
And it's not nuanced either. It's just very simple what she said, which is and the immature thing. I don't have your heat for Taylor Swift, but that whole thing of okay, now I'm going to endorse it because this thing happened to me individually. And now you weren't on this page beforehand. You that took something individually affecting you, to get involved. I think this is much more adult, and I think that's why a lot of liberals are upset about it because they are infantile. To hear somebody say like I can't just support full-throatedly endorse this person because she's not Kamala Harris and all these people. Like, if you want this to come, if you want this choir to sing of all these celebrities, you can't be doing genocide in Gaza. I'm sorry, you just can't do both. You pick one or the other, and you're picking bombs for Israel.
Yeah.
And being pussy on trans rights too. So it's nice that occasionally there's a signing at the White House for LGBT initiative, so that the people who are willing to like forget all this stuff and go dress up nice and go to DC have something to say, like, hey, look at this is what I was doing back then, as just cowardice abounds on all this stuff.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's been ridiculous to see this sort of blowback for her statement. I mean, the idea that you owe anyone an endorsement is just ridiculous. Like, again, like if she was out there advocating for people to not vote for somebody or to vote for somebody else, and that was your issue with her, then I could understand that. But she's not doing that. She's just saying, I'm not going to endorse a person.
And she's literally saying, I'm going to support, I'm going to vote for her.
Yeah.
Right. What more do people want?
Well,
they want people to lie and to mute their conscience. And I'm sorry, like, that's not any politics you can get people broadly on top of. So you can like condescend, but this is bullshit. Like, people see through this. You're going to have to pay people to buy this, and you don't have enough money for that.
Also, I mean, you would think with not just Chappell, Roan, but with the number of people across the country saying that they're not going to come out and vote for the Democrats because of Palestine, because of their lukewarm messaging on trans rights, that it would encourage the people who are out there yelling at Chappell, Roan, or the people saying that they are, not enthusiastic enough about voting, to turn to the Democrats and demand that they be more, vocal, and they change the way that they're going. But for me, I'm always just surprised by how many registered Democrats just have given up on trying to influence the way the party's actually moving. And I think it's mostly just because they know they can't. And so it's embarrassing to try to force Joe Biden to do anything. It's embarrassing to try to force Kamala to do anything, even the right thing, even if you think it's going to cost them the election, because, they're just not open to stuff like that. They're not open to public pressure. So it's easier. It seems more of a rational goal to just bully everyone who has personal reasons for not wanting to support them into supporting them instead. And I just don't think it's an effective strategy, but it's all they have, considering our Democratic Party is very anti-democratic in the way they operate or decide their policy agenda.
Yeah.
Well, Democrats sort of have it perfectly right now, how everything is, honestly. And like Nancy Pelosi hit the nail right on, my girl, Nancy Pelosi, by the way, hit the nail right on the head when she went out there. She didn't mean it this way, but she said that, America needs a strong Republican Party. Essentially what she's saying is the Republicans basically enabled Democrats to just coast or do what they currently do, because they can always say, look at the other guys, you want them instead. And undoubtedly, yes, Democrats almost across the board, with some few here and there, but almost across the board, they are obviously better than Republicans. Even the politicians that we do support, they're all Democrats. Democrats do have individually good politicians. But the whole party is able to just sit back and basically run on a platform of, we will not be Republicans. So much so. Maybe we will on some issues, but not all the issues. So you either want sort of Republicans or full-fledged crazy Republicans. And so obviously people are going to go with the lesser of two evils.
I mean, she literally says in Rolling Stone here, so yeah, I'm voting for fucking Kamala, but I'm not settling for what has been offered because that's questionable. I mean, this is just an adult interacting with our voting, our electoral system. I can't believe this is controversial.
And she's also a queer person. I just want that to be clear to people. Like, she has her own rights that are on the line here. So to say that she doesn't care about those in some way based on the fact that she's voting for Harris but not endorsing her is disingenuous at best. And this bizarre liberal media backlash because she's so popular right now.
She doesn't need that as a warrant, though. She could be straight as an arrow, and this is just the proper way to regard our elections.
Right.
It's true. And I think
go ahead. You were going to say I'm right, so I want to hear it.
I was going to say you're right, so you might as well let me finish. You're right in that the Democrats have a much harder time defining their core value proposition outside of the existence of Republicans. If there were a viable leftist party, it would be hard to imagine the Democratic Party getting the same percentage of the vote if you had an actual leftist party that was arguing for redistribution of wealth, for wholesale expansion of our social safety system, of our social security state. I can't imagine Democrats, winning any more than maybe a few suburbs in like the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And so they require this stranglehold on the identities and the narratives and the struggles of people like Chappell, Roan, of not just celebrities, but queer people. But, and like you said before, they are the lesser of two evils in their totality, but most people aren't voting because of the totality of the Democratic Party versus the Republican Party. Democrats love touting out that 99% versus 100% Hitler thing, but I don't think that fully understands that that's consigning 99% of society to like being ruled by Hitler, while 1% is supposed to be the particular amount of people that are left unbothered by this sort of Hitler and just like the slightly less Hitler administration, right? Like the difference between 1,000 bombs being dropped on Gaza and 1,001 bombs being dropped on Gaza seems meaningful when you're not in Gaza. The difference between like, having access to, having 25 versus having like 30 states and have no access to abortion seems meaningful when you're outside of those states. But if you're one of those like bottom 25 states who are going to be left in the cold regardless, it's not meaningful to you. Like, it's not like people need to understand that like for a decent portion of the population, the difference between Republicans and Democrats is not as meaningful as it is for some people, especially for people in the media who can like take a, bird's eye view on the situation.
Right. I mean, especially given how, she grew up. And it's like we have that caller who called in, I think, from Kentucky, just speaking about how, she knows the Democrats are better, but they're not necessarily speaking to her. Chappell grew up in Missouri and her in a conservative Christian household. So she has this perspective on this that perhaps the Democrats could learn from a little bit in terms of appealing to all parts of the country as well. But and also just making their case more clearly.
Just to go back to what I said earlier, the reason why she's getting so much shit though specifically is because she's giving them oxygen. She's really got to just say what she's got to say and just ignore them. Just ignore them. Please don't stop speaking. Don't stop speaking. Keep doing your thing. I'm not telling her to stop talking at all. I'm telling her to keep doing her thing, but stop recognizing and giving air to people who aren't worthy of your time, because they're just going to use that. Oh, she's paying attention to me. I'm going to keep criticizing her, keep coming after her because she's going to keep giving me oxygen. They don't deserve it.
Yeah,
they don't deserve it, but we do need to take the fight to this sort of person.
Right.
Like, this is the problem with Democrats. These are the people who are like, oh, shut up. Who cares? What's the difference between, Bowman or Latimer? And then you see all the policy happen, or you see why, we can push out $16 billion for goddamn Israel. But $16 billion to, say, shore up childcare? Nah, we can't really do that.
But
that's a choice by all these people.
That's what I'm saying. Is she needs a publicist or a PR person, because I'm going to make another sports reference, but like the reason Lamar Jackson in part fell in the draft was because he didn't have an agent that was speaking in the ear of some of the guys, and they were able to say, oh, he's just a wide receiver, and he fell all the way to 32 for the Ravens. Like, there's sometimes you have to play the game because these guys are going to play dirty and they're going to come after her like this. So Chappell.
I don't even think that solves it though, because look at, like, for example, off the top of my head, Jack Black. He's someone who's got a publicist, and his publicist likely told him to throw his buddy under the bus because of his comments on I don't even remember what the comments were about, because no one seems to remember what happened.
It was who knows what it was. Yeah, exactly. You're right. It slipped my mind.
But that's sort of the point. If they just ignored the complaints, everyone would have forgotten about it because no one even remembers the actual original event. But Jack Black now, he's known for throwing his buddy under the bus. I mean, you got to learn to ignore people whose opinions do not matter. Obviously, if it's someone you respect and they're criticizing you, you should take those criticisms to heart and you should respond to them. But if it's someone who is not worthy of your time because they do not actually care about the same issues that you care about, and they're just trying to get at you for their own political gain or for their own gain in whatever, they do not deserve a response. They do not deserve your time.
Just to wrap that up too, I would just say reminds me of 2016 with the Bernier bus thing and how that was all just to obfuscate the larger truth about the reason why the Democratic Party does not have a runaway victory every time there's an election, despite what they presumed to represent on paper. That's because they have a history of letting people down. They have a history of leaving people behind, not the entirety of the country. There are still, liberal strongholds that enjoy more or less full human rights unless you're protesting against Israel's genocide in Palestine. And they like to focus or hyper-focus on these groups, like people threatening to withhold their votes regarding Democrats on Palestine or because they're Bernier busters, because it obscures how many more promises they've broken before that, how many more people are staying home and not even engaging in this conversation about Palestine and Israel or what Democrats will do better or worse than Republicans, because they understand that for their lives, it won't mean very much at all because they're already living in abject poverty. They're already living paycheck to paycheck. They're already living in a place with no clean water. Like, all of these conversations should be happening every election about what Democrats could do to uplift all people. But instead, Democrats' most dedicated libs just find one group that seems to be willing to vote and asking for something specific and chastising them for doing that to the exclusion of all other groups.
Yeah, it has a disciplinary element, I think you're talking about.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.